So, what happens when two successful business owners who also happen to be popular YouTubers? What happens when they decide to combine their talents and launch a podcast? Well, in the case of Joe, he's the owner of Ohio Wood Burner, and Dan, he's the creator of Back 40 Firewood. Well, that partnership resulted in them having the #1 podcast in their niche. And last week, I did a Zoom with these successful and I've got to say entertaining entrepreneurs. And in my Zoom, they revealed how they turned their side hustles into successful money-making businesses. They told me why they decided to combine their talents to launch a weekly podcast. And they also shared why they think their podcast is so popular. Now, I'm going to introduce you to both of these entrepreneurs, but before I do, I want to let you know that in the description box of this video, you'll find a link to my free Side Hustle Starter Kit. Now, my kit, it'll guide you through the key steps, the early steps of starting a side hustle or launching a full-time business. Now, to get my free Side Hustle Starter Kit, all you've got to do is click on the link in the description box. So now, let me introduce you to Joe and Dan. On their podcast, they go by the name Wood Hounds. Come on! So as I mentioned in the opening, I'm here today with Joe and Dan. Both of these gentlemen have YouTube channels that I follow. I got to say, I follow regularly. I watch their videos, and I believe we can learn a lot from them on how to go ahead, how to start a side hustle, how to build your side hustle into a money-making business. Well, let's just get started right away. I know you guys, I want to talk about your new podcast that you two have launched. But before we do that, if we could, I'd like to talk a little bit about your YouTube channels. And if you could just tell me, Joe, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is called Ohio Wood Burner. We post videos every Wednesday and Sunday. We're about a 2-year-old channel, and we just stick to the underlying theme is an over 50 retired corporate hack who has turned his side hustle into a full-time career. And my YouTube channel just follows the trials and tribulations. It's a day in the life of a firewood delivery service.
It is definitely a day in the life. As I mentioned, watching your videos, it's definitely a day in life. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, my channel is Back 40 Firewood, and kind of the same thing. The focus is mainly on firewood and just like the fun you can have making firewood and all the different, like I mostly make firewood for my own personal use, but I also do a little bit of the side hustle. I have a roadside stand that I sell bundles and loose firewood out of. So that's kind of like the focus is just maintaining and running the side hustle, roadside stand, and then just, following me along on my adventures with firewood.
Dan, you have a full-time job. Isn't that true?
Yes, I do. So, and it's not firewood.
You know what blows me away is that it's amazing to me. I saw it this morning. I looked right now. Combined, you guys got almost 250,000 views in this past month. Combined, you have over 9 million views total. That's a lot of eyeballs watching 2 YouTube channels.
But I mean, the other thing too is, it's something I think about, the interest of watching people work, but then also you also have to have like that whole, you've heard it a million times, but you have to be yourself when you're on YouTube and when you're doing something like a YouTube channel. And I think that's part of the thing that people will gravitate towards is that they can smell someone not being authentic. And when they do see someone being themselves in their element, that's what kind of pulls them in.
And there is something satisfying about firewood. And there are a lot of firewood channels on YouTube. And a lot of channels just stick to just the physical cutting and splitting and stacking of firewood. There's very little talk. There's very little undercurrent themes, that go throughout their channel. And a lot of people just find that satisfying. And this is where Dan and I's channel have that other element to it, where mine is more geared towards running a small business, all of the things that I do well and all of the things that I do not well. And and Dan's channel, hits that emotional connection that a lot of people have. When you think about, growing up, there's always that time at the wood pile or working with your parents and sitting around a campfire. And that's where Dan's channel really, really gets, and it connects with people. And then we use this term, and it is true. There is a community on YouTube of firewood people that are hobbyists or just interested. I have people that are in nursing homes that follow my channel, and they just appreciate it because it reminds them of when they were young and when they could still, work their back the way that we do. And that has just become a new reality, thanks to YouTube and this community. And that's like someone like Dan. Dan runs a weekly live cast, and people can dial in and watch and interact. And you do really feel like, and I've never mailed anyone a Christmas card from YouTube. I've met some in person, but some of these people that I talk to weekly, I feel like we're best friends.
Yeah, Joe, I see that too. And I got to tell you, you just mentioned Dan's live streams, live cast, and I've watched it a few times, Dan. And I got to tell you, man, it just draws me in. It really draws me in. I mean, you make it fun, you make it enjoyable. People, they interact with you, and I see where you've really built just a great community.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but thank you for the compliments. And yeah, it was something that when I started doing it, I wasn't sure how Friday nights would, come across for people, because at my age, I was thinking, well, you know what? I don't have anything going on Friday nights, but maybe other people do. But then, it's just all of a sudden people, it's like, this is what they do. They tune in Friday nights. We kick back. We have a good time. I answer questions. I get that interaction, live with people. And you never know what's going to happen.
So let's talk a little bit about now the podcast, because you guys are doing something else now. You've decided you're going to go ahead and do a podcast. Can you talk about that a little bit?
We are testing our relationship here by partnering. That's when you talk about starting a business. I'm not saying the podcast is a business, but you always hear about people, they're best friends and they start a business together and then they hate each other. Yeah. So we took that risk here with the podcast because I like Dan a lot. He's a lot of fun to be around. And when we would have our phone conversations, like when I go on a delivery, I'll just call him up on my phone and we just shoot the breeze. And he's easy to talk with. He's funny. And we see things a lot in the same way. And I had started getting into podcasts about a year ago. Just, I read, I have interests, World War II history, science, astronomy. And I just type them into a podcast search and I listen to podcasts. Well, I brought it up to Dan. And, it would come up in conversation every other week. And then we decided, let's give it a shot.
Yep. So that was it. It was just, just talking about it for how long. And then finally we said, all right, let's do it.
Uh-huh.
What do you call your podcast and what's the topic?
The podcast is the Wood Hounds. And the Wood Hounds is a term that kind of comes from my channel. What we call people who are like always on the hunt for firewood and always like hounding up firewood. And we talk about anything and everything firewood related. We are the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
That's right. That's an incredible accomplishment. How long have you been doing have you had the podcast?
Well, only, what are we, 15, 16 episodes in?
Yeah. Yeah, we're still pretty young.
So, and you really you focus on the same thing as you do on your YouTube channels.
Yeah.
But can people call in? I mean, is there a way? I know it's a podcast, so people are downloading it.
Yeah, right now we just take emails. We have people email us like ideas or topics or questions, whatever. But yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people don't, realize. When you think of firewood, you just think of, oh yeah, okay, here's a piece of wood, you burn it, that's it. But the things we go into on the podcast are like a little more in-depth, like different uses of firewood, different types of trees, different problems you have with fire. We cover all kinds of topics. And the topic of firewood itself there's a lot you can do with just firewood. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, we put out videos every week and podcasts every week. It's crazy.
You cannot run out of content in firewood. You seriously can't, Lou. You know, we just did a, you know, we're a firewood channel, and we did a podcast on the elm tree, you know, just celebrating the elm tree and the role it played in the in the formation of the United States of America. You know, it's just a fascinating topic. We talk about machines and chainsaws and hookaroons and log splitters and firewood processors and pickup trucks. We talk about family. We talk about, you know, stories that we've had from our childhood of just a memorable trip out into the woods with our dads, you know, finding wood. We talk about just sitting around the campfire on a holiday. So all of these things, and that's what, you know, maybe firewood isn't the topic, but it's like that central thing that just brings everyone together. And that's really what firewood at least means to Dan and I. If you sit around a campfire and talk to us, it's not the fact that it's just a piece of wood that you stack on top of another. It's the fact that it's just something that has brought people together, you know, since the days of the caveman. You know, it's when you started cooking your meat and you learned to talk and develop and trust, and brings people together. That's what firewood has. And then here we are. You know, it brought us together as YouTube channels, and now we've started a new venture here in podcasting. And, you know, we joke about, we are the #1 firewood podcast in the world, but, you know, we joke about that because we're the only one, you know, we are the only firewood podcast in the world. But the one thing that we've learned, and we're still new at this, is, you know, the metrics that you look at to gauge your successes, no matter what it is. If you're selling widgets or running a YouTube channel, you know, we use the metrics that are out there from all of these other websites that compile, you know, and there's huge podcasts, you know, with like millions of downloads. We're still very small potatoes, but our metrics ranks us. We're in the top 5% of all podcasts in the world, just based on downloads. You know, so this, you know, there are a lot of podcasts out there that have 10 or 20 downloads, you know, not very many. And, you know, we're doing well. I'm impressed. I really am. Well, I would have never thought we would have gotten this far.
So how can someone find your podcast? Just going to Apple, or how do they find your particular podcast?
Yeah, they can go to whatever platform they listen to podcasts on and search for the Wood Hounds, or they can go to thewoodhounds.com, and then that's the direct link right to the podcast.
So in this enterprise here, the Wood Hounds, you know, I am the good looks and the face of the Wood Hounds. Okay. Dan is the computer nerd, right? So Dan's full-time career is in computers, and he's slick with this kind of stuff. You know, he's put together our website. We got our email address, and anything computer, it goes to Dan. He's the driving force behind all this.
Yeah, and you definitely need someone like Dan to, and you need, of course, that pretty face like you've got, Joe. Yeah. You need that to be successful in the podcast world. Well, listen, gentlemen, I'm really glad that we got together today to talk about your new podcast called the Wood Hounds, and also your YouTube channels. I'm going to put some links to everything we talked about. I'll put links so that people can find you guys easily. I'll put that in the description box. Well, once again, I do want to thank both of you for being with us here today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Come on.